You filled up your tank this week. Maybe you didn't think much about it. You slid your card, you watched the numbers climb, $4, $4.10. Maybe you winced a little. Then you drove away. But here's what nobody told you when you pulled up to that pump. That number on the screen, it didn't come from nowhere. It came from a decision made in Washington, D.C. at 2 in the morning in a video posted on social media that Congress never voted on, and it is costing you, personally, every single day. Let's start with a number, because the number matters. On February 27, 2026, the Friday before everything changed, you could fill up your tank for $2.98 a gallon. That was the national average. Nothing special. Slightly annoying maybe. The kind of thing you notice and forget. 1 week later, $3.25. A 27-cent jump in 7 days. By mid-March, $3.70. By the end of March, $3.98. A whole dollar more than where we started in just 1 month. And as of this week, April 2026, the AAA national average sits at $4.10 a gallon. California is at $5.89. Diesel, the fuel that moves everything you buy, is up over 60% in states like Texas, Arizona, and Florida. Now here's what you need to understand about that number. That's not inflation doing its slow, grinding thing. That's not supply and demand working itself out over years. That's a spike, a shock, the kind of price movement that used to happen once a generation. And it has a cause, a very specific, very traceable cause. Before we get to the geopolitics, I want to talk about a tomato. Not because tomatoes are dramatic, but because they explain something most people never think about. A farmer grows a tomato in California. A truck running on diesel picks it up and drives it to a distribution hub. Another truck takes it to a regional warehouse. A delivery truck brings it to your grocery store. You drive on gasoline to buy it. Every single link in that chain burns fuel. So when diesel jumps 60%, the farmer's operating costs go up. The trucking company raises its rates. The warehouse adds a fuel surcharge. The grocery store marks everything up, and you're standing in the produce aisle wondering why a bag of salad costs $6. This is how an oil shock travels through an economy, not as a headline, as a receipt. It shows up as the grocery bill that keeps climbing even though you're buying the same things, as the delivery fee that's suddenly twice what it used to be, as the small business owner who has to raise prices or eat the loss, as the family that quietly stops taking road trips. The war doesn't feel like a war to most Americans. It feels like money disappearing from your wallet in ways that are just slightly too diffuse to be outraged about. But make no mistake, this is where it comes from. Okay, I need to show you something on a map. This is the Persian Gulf, and this narrow strip of water right here, squeezed between Iran to the north and Oman to the south, is called the Strait of Hormuz. It is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, and through this 21-mile gap flows approximately 1/5 of all the oil on planet Earth, every single day. About 20 million barrels, the fuel that heats homes in Japan, powers factories in Germany, fills tanks in Texas, all of it passing through one narrow channel. Think about that engineering for a second. We have built modern industrial civilization on a foundation that includes a single bottleneck the width of a mid-sized American city. Economists call it a choke point, and that word is exactly right. Because if someone closes it, even partially, even temporarily, the entire global energy system begins to suffocate. For decades, that bottleneck stayed open. It was tense sometimes. There were close calls, but it stayed open. On March 2nd, 2026, Iran closed it. Now, and I want to be precise here, because precision matters. Iran didn't just randomly decide to shut down 1/5 of the world's oil supply. Something happened first. At 2:30 in the morning on February 28, 2026, Donald Trump posted an 8-minute video on Truth Social. Most of America was asleep. In that video, he announced that the United States, alongside Israel, had launched a massive coordinated military strike across Iran. The operation was called Epic Fury. It targeted missile sites, nuclear facilities, air defenses, and Iranian leadership. By the time the sun rose, Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, was dead. Congress was not asked. There was no declaration of war, no authorization for the use of military force. The American public was informed the way you find out about a product launch, via social media, in the middle of the night. Iran responded the only way a country can respond to a superpower that has just assassinated its leader and bombed its cities. It hit back wherever it could. Missiles at US bases, drones at Gulf states, and then, most consequentially for every American with a car, it closed the strait. Ship transits through the strait had been running around 130 per day. By early March, that number collapsed to 6, a 95% drop. And the price of oil, which had been sitting comfortably around $70 a barrel, started climbing like it hadn't climbed since 1973. I want to talk about who actually pays for this. Not in the abstract, in real numbers, about real people. The average American drives about 14,000 miles a year in a car that gets roughly 25 miles per gallon. That's about 560 gallons of gas a year. When the price goes from $2.98 to $4.10, that's a $1.12 increase per gallon. Multiply that by 560 gallons. That's $627 gone per driver per year. For a household with 2 cars, over $1,200. Not from a raise you didn't get, not from a subscription you forgot to cancel, from the pump because of a decision you never got to vote on. Now let's talk about a long-haul truck driver. Their rig gets maybe 6 miles per gallon. They drive 100,000 miles a year. That's nearly 17,000 gallons of diesel. Diesel is up more than 50% since February. For a trucker, that's potentially $25,000 in extra annual fuel costs. They have 2 choices: absorb it and lose their business, or pass it on. They pass it on to the distributor, who passes it on to the store, who passes it on to you in the form of a grocery receipt that just keeps getting worse. And then there's the people nobody talks about, the lowest income Americans, the ones for whom $1 a gallon price hike isn't an inconvenience, it's a crisis. Researchers have found that lower income households spend a larger share of their budgets on gasoline than wealthy ones. A family in Mississippi, for example, might spend over 5% of their monthly income just on gas before this price spike. Think about what that number looks like now. This is not an equal tax. The people with the least to spare are paying the most proportionally. Not in Washington, at the pump. Here's the question that I can't stop thinking about. Not whether the war was justified. That's a different, complicated conversation that reasonable people disagree on. My question is simpler. Who told you it would cost this much? Not the geopolitical case for it, not the national security argument, not whether Iran's nuclear program was a threat. I mean, who sat you down and said, here is the price tag, for you, personally, every time you fill up your tank, for however long this lasts? The answer is nobody. Because that's not how we talk about military decisions in this country. We talk about threats, we talk about enemies, we talk about strength and resolve and national interest. We almost never talk about the domestic economic cost, the one that lands directly in the wallets of ordinary people who had no vote, no voice, and no warning. There's a term for a cost that gets spread across an entire population without their consent, an externality. In economics, it's what happens when a decision maker doesn't pay the full cost of their decision. Someone else does. Every time you fill up your tank right now, you are paying an externality. You're absorbing a cost that was created by decisions made far above your pay grade, in rooms you weren't in, on a timeline you didn't choose. And I think you deserve to know that, clearly, plainly. Not buried in a news article about Brent crude futures, not as a footnote to a press conference about national security. Right here, in plain language, the war in Iran is raising your cost of living, and it was started without your vote. The next time you fill up your tank, take a second with that number on the screen. $4, $4.10, maybe 5 something if you're in California. That number has a story. It has a date, February 28th, 2026, 2:30 in the morning. It has a location, a 21 miles straight on the other side of the planet. It has a cause, an 8-minute video posted on social media while you were asleep. You are not just buying gasoline. You are paying a war tax. A tax that was never put to a vote, never debated in public, never explained to you as a line item. Now you know where it comes from. What you do with that information, that's up to you.